Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about the other LA team in the season preview and the defending MLS Cup champion, that is LAFC. Now, despite the fact that LAFC finally won that elusive MLS Cup last season, after they've been to chase that for the past couple of years, expectation is still going to remain high for this team because not only they're trying to defend their MLS Cup crown heading into this upcoming season, but you know damn well they want to win that CONCACAF Champions League heading into this season. I mean, I think that is pretty much the main goal for them, to become in that second MLS team to win the CONCACAF Champions League, and they definitely have a chance to do so because despite the fact that we know there are definitely some good teams down in Liga MX that would be part of CCL, LAFC is still going to remain at one of the favorites of winning CCL this year, though that kind of assumption did take a bit of a hit, especially a couple of days ago when they announced they decided to sell Chicho Arango to Pachuca, and that I'll talk about in just a bit of how mind-boggling and just kind of head-scratching the fact that they decided to do that before we even have the season begin. I mean, there was definitely a sense that Chicho Arango was going to be sold, but I didn't think it was going to be this all season and before they embark on this CCL run that hope that they will end better than what they did in 2020 when they make it to the final but fall on the final hurdle against Tigres. But nevertheless, like I said, last season they won MLS Cup with a 21-4-9 record and finished with 67 points. That actually is the best record and the most points out of any team in MLS last season, as they won the Supporters Shield and becoming the first team since Toronto FC to win the Supporters Shield and also winning the MLS Cup. So in other words, they won the domestic double and also kind of signing some of those Supporters Shield curse kind of supporters the fact that, yeah, you know, this trophy is still going to be cursed and that if you win it, you're probably going to suffer an early playoff exit or suffer a painful playoff elimination down the line. But prior to the year that they won MLS Cup last season, it was not a great season in 2021. In fact, it is definitely one of the most disappointing season we've seen an MLS team embark in 2021. LAFC finishing in 9th place and finished with a 12-9-13 record and finished with 45 points. And again, that was a team that had a lot of good talented players, and it looked like they were going to make a run for MLS Cup, but they just completely faltered because of injuries and underachievement. And that's also the only time that this young franchise did not make it to the playoffs with 45 points. Now, prior to that, they did make it to the playoffs as a 7th seed with a 9-5-8 record and finished with 32 points. But despite the fact that some people were saying that this was the best 7th seed and the best lower seed to make a big run in MLS Cup, they faltered in the first round to the Seattle Sounders. In fact, in the previous year, in 2019, similar to the year when they won MLS Cup last season, where they actually finished with at that point the best record and most points in MLS regular season, with a 21-9-4 record and finished with 72 points, and everybody were already starting to think about crowning them as MLS Cup champion before the playoffs has begun. They ran into the Seattle Sounders again, and this time losing them in the Western Conference final. And then in their first year of existence, they of course become, I believe, the sixth MLS team to make it to the playoffs as an expansion team with a 16-9-9 record and finished with 57 points, which I think to this day remains still the highest amount of points that an expansion team has ever made. But unfortunately, they did lose to RSL in the first round. And normally, when you're an expansion team and you make it to the playoffs, it's definitely a great achievement. And there's no doubt that I think LAFC might think of that way back in 2018. But I guarantee you, if you talk to some LAFC fans during that expansion season, they'll definitely be very disappointed the fact that they lost in that first round, considering they were favorites in that game against RSL. And there was a sense that, you know, that team could have done some things that the 98 Chicago Fire did, which is win MLS Cup in their expansion season, but it wasn't meant to be. And it would have been a great storyline too, because if LAFC did win that MLS Cup in their expansion season, guess who coached that 98 Chicago Fire team? It's Bob Bradley. Guess who coached that 2018 LAFC team? Oh yeah, it's Bob Bradley. I mean, that would have been incredible if Bob Bradley can lead two expansion team of winning an MLS Cup in their expansion season. But like I said, it wasn't meant to be. Now, in terms of some of the transfer that they had, now I know for the most part, people have said that LAFC kind of had a quiet transfer window. Not really. I mean, when you look at some of the signings that they made, some of them are big signings. One of the early big signing that they got was this Croatian kid called Step Buke. And again, I'm gonna get my pronunciation correctly once I hear his name being mentioned throughout games by the broadcaster a couple time. And many people have said that he is a guy that has a lot of potential to do good things, and that LAFC is banking that is the case, because they did pay a lot to get him. I think something about 6.5 million pounds to get him. And then the other big acquisition this offseason is getting Aaron Long. I mean, this has been kind of the talk in the offseason, at least in the early part of the offseason, of who exactly is going to win the Aaron Long sweepstakes, because we know that he was not going to be re-signing for the New York Red Bulls, because the Red Bulls have that unofficial rule where if you're a captain of the team, you'll probably be gone in 2 or 3 seasons to another MLS team. And since Aaron Long was the previous captain, you knew that you were just going to just kind of wind that or start the clock in terms of when he's going to be leaving to another team. And that it seems like LAFC eventually did win the sweepstake to get Aaron Long. They also recently got another defender, that is Sergi Palencia. I mentioned his name, I think, in yesterday News of the Week episode. Add some more depth in terms of that defense. And then they also got Danny Cristomo and Abraham Romero, 2 guys that played for the development team Las Vegas Lights. They also got Aiden Jakupovic as their backup goalkeeper, after I think their backup goalkeeper Thomas Romero left for Toronto FC. They got Jessim Killian in the draft, and then also to just add more depth in terms of the back line, they also signed Daniel Maldonado from the Honduran league. Now, in terms of some of the players that are no longer with this team, obviously the biggest name is Chicho Arango. And again, it's very confusing why LAFC decided to sell him off. And again, we'll see whether or not, as the season goes along, whether this is going to come back to haunt LAFC, because why would you decide to sell a guy that is clearly your proven goal scorer, and clearly a guy that I have heard that he want to stay with LAFC and continue to win trophies, and now all of a sudden he's no longer with this team. So yeah, that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about, especially in that CCL run. If they don't go deep in that CCL run, and if they do maybe lack that true number 9 that can score the goals for them, everybody's going to immediately talk about why LAFC decided to make a very, very questionable decision of selling Chicho Arango to Pachuca. But besides that, they also part ways with Latif Blessing, and this is definitely bittersweet, because Latif Blessing, one of the original members of this LAFC team, has been with this team since its inception, but unfortunately he has saw his minutes dwindling down to a point where he was just dropping down the depth chart like a rock, and that you knew that his time was going to come to an end with LAFC, and I'm pretty sure he wants to move on to somewhere else to get more minutes. And now it seems like he's going to go to the New England Revolution, and hope that he'll be a big part of that team too, just like what he was a big part of this LAFC team during the first couple of years when this team came to the league. They also will no longer have Christian Tell. They decided not to renew his loan that they got, or was it actually a signing? I think it was actually just a loan and not a transfer that they got from Christian Tello. They also let go of Jackson Mendes, and they also let go Sebastian Ibiaga, who is going to FC Dallas. They also let go of Franco Escobar, who's going to Houston Dynamo. They also let go of Cal Jennings, Danny Trejo, Thomas Romero, as I mentioned, going to TFC. And then, of course, Gareth Bell, no longer with this team after he announced his retirement, and are spending now more time on the golf course. And especially, he was actually part of the Pebble Beach AT&T Pro-Am just recently. And I gotta say, he actually is a very good golfer. I mean, people jokes about Gareth Bale spending his time on the golf course, but man, he's actually a really good golfer. And I know he has officially retired from
playing in football, but he can always have a chance to maybe be on the PGA Tour or even in live golf, because I know that's another big thing that is happening in the world of golf. But the other player that they kind of let go, but I would say that this player is kind of in a limbo situation, is Eddie Segura. So Eddie Segura, of course, is it's still listed on the LAFC roster page that he's still part of the roster, but again, technically his contract has expired, and that I think they're working on trying to renew his contract. And again, it'd be interesting to see whether if they can do so, because Eddie Segura is a very big piece to this team. Although he's been having a lot of injury concern, and I think that maybe is the reason why LAFC might not want to bring him back, because as talented as Eddie Segura is, to this team, he's been just battling with so many injuries to a point where I don't think LAFC feel like it's worth it to keep a guy that can't stay healthy most of the time on the roster and eat up their cap space. Now, looking at some of the strength and weakness of this team, the strength, it's pretty much everything. I mean, they're pretty much good on the attacking end, minus the number 9 position. They're pretty good in the midfield category, and on the defensive side, also rock solid too, and even in the goalkeeping department, where the goalkeeping department maybe could be a question, especially if Maxime Crepeau doesn't make it back in time. But that's also why they decided to sign a backup goalkeeper in Jakovic, and we'll see exactly how he will do stepping in on a temporary note. But the weakness for this team, as I mentioned, it's the number 9 position. Now that Chicho Arango is no longer with this team, that definitely left a big hole in terms of that spot, and they're kind of back to where they were before they discovered that Chicho Arango is really good in this league, where they just don't have a reliable number 9, and that they have tried at times put maybe guys like Carlos Vela and then Diego Rossi, who was still there a couple of years ago, in that number 9 position, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and I'm just wondering whether if they're going to do the same thing. And then, of course, the depth in the midfield. I mean, the depth in that midfield is definitely lacking, and that I think that's going to be an area they'll hope to also address, especially if Jose Cifuentes is eventually going to get sold, either in the summer transfer window or in the winter transfer window. Now, in terms of the three big question of this team that they face heading into this upcoming season, again, the number 9 position. It's going to be a big question for this team, because right now in the depth chart, I think the only number 9 that can play on this team on the depth chart is Mahala Opoku. And don't get me wrong, Mahala Opoku is a very good player, especially coming off the bench, but I don't think he is the answer in terms of just being a regular starter and a perfect replacement for Chicho Arango. So, again, will they maybe decided to put Carlos Vela back into that number 9 spot, because they have done that before, or will they decide to go for a DP number 9? Because keep in mind, LAFC, they still have an open DP spot open, so will they maybe think about going for it, or maybe they'll think about pushing Dennis Bawanga in the striker position, because I think Bawanga did play at the number 9 position before when he was still with Saint Etienne. So yeah, there's definitely that question of who exactly is the number 9 for this team, especially after the key departure of Chicho Arango did a couple of days ago. And then, of course, the second big question: how much will LAFC get for Jose Cifuentes and also some of these young talent player? I mean, I won't be surprised Jose Cifuentes and Diego Palacio, two of the most highly after player that many teams are looking or might be sold either in the summer transfer window or maybe heading into the next offseason. Whatever the amount is going to be, it's going to be big, because both of these players are world class players in this league, some of the best players that we have seen, and that they're not going to let go of those players for a cheap amount. And then lastly, the third big question is, can they win CCL? And again, when you look at this roster, minus Chicho Arango, I still think this team still have a chance to do so, and especially again if they could think about signing a DP number 9, which as of now they haven't had. I haven't heard any rumor of what exactly what kind of number 9 or a big number 9 that's going to come to this team that will replace the big hole that is left from Chicho Arango. But even with that, I still think this roster is strong enough to make a deep run in CCL. Although the first game is going to be a big test. I think the first game they're going to be playing against Alajuelense, and that Alajuelense is definitely one of the better teams in Costa Rica, and that I'm going to be interested to see whether or not if LAFC can pass that first test. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a feeling LAFC could pass that first test because we're talking about a team that, remember back in 2020 when they were in CCL and how their first game was against Club Leon. And I know Club Leon has always been a team that hasn't done well in CCL, but it's still Club Leon. It was at that time a team that was near the top and near the pinnacle of a Liga MX, and that, you know, LAFC which just got the better of them, and that I have a feeling they're not going to be scared facing against a good Costa Rican team, and that again I have a feeling they could really go deep and can definitely beat some of these Liga MX teams, especially with the way that I've already mentioned before. It feels like the gap between MLS and Liga MX is closing ever so close to a point where we could see both leagues could be on even strength, at least in these next 5 or 10 years, if we start to see more MLS team dominating CCL, and also judging how they of course will do when the League Cup does happen. And then of course the bonus question for this LAFC team: is this Carlos Vela swan song season? So obviously Carlos Vela, his contract I believe ends this season, and that again it's going to be interesting to see whether or not indeed it is his swan song season. And again, if LAFC does win CCL, I have a feeling maybe Carlos Vela will say that this might be it, because you know he's pretty much won everything. Like, he's won MLS Cup, he has won Supporters Shield. I mean, I know he probably have not won the US Open Cup, but you know LAFC have historically hasn't really targeted the US Open Cup as a competition that they take seriously. But some of the big competition that we have seen that LAFC and Carlos Vela has won, you know, that's pretty much all of them. And you know, winning CCL definitely is the final big thing that Carlos Vela can win for LAFC, and that again we'll see whether or not if this is indeed his swan song season, or maybe LAFC might think about locking him to another contract, because you know last season there was definitely that threat that Carlos Vela was going to lead this team in the middle of the season, and thankfully they were able to get a new contract extension signed. But that contract extension I think only goes until the end of this year, and that again we'll see whether or not indeed this could be the swan song season for Carlos Vela. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're an LAFC fan, what do you think is some of the strength, the weakness, and the free big question is facing this team for this upcoming season. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.